Good morning to you, everybody. It is Eric Jackson's In the Know. Today is Wednesday, 2 days before, or actually a day before the FLW tournament on Cherokee Lake here in eastern Tennessee, just outside of Knoxville. Today we're going to talk about different types of fishing craft and the benefits and the drawbacks of the different kinds of craft. With me today, I've got a Ranger Z520L, 50th anniversary Ranger, with a 250 horsepower Evinrude G2 two-stroke on the back. Unbelievable. Set of power pole blades, Raymarine Axiom Pros 12-inch, 9-inch, 12-inch, a Minn Kota spot lock trolling motor, soon to be the new motor guide coming out. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, that is my the boat of choice for the next couple of days. Why? Because, well, those are some of the requirements of going to fish an FLW Pro Tour. You got to have 150 horsepower, 2 live wells, stuff like that. So what do you say we get started? Do you think we'll cover kayaks? Yeah. All right. So fishing craft, we're going to go big to small, or small to big, whatever you prefer. Actually, why don't we go from small to big today? That'll make it easy. So if you're watching this and you're a kayaker or a kayak fisherman, you're pretty aware of what fishing kayaks are about. But things are evolving. I'm gonna give you a little insight, and also maybe you don't use your fishing kayak exactly like I do. So step one, fishing kayaks are not what they used to be. What does that mean? Fishing kayaks used to be just recreational kayaks that kayak makers and kayakers made specifically for recreational kayaking. And then they'd say, I'm a fisherman, I fish. Oh yeah, I totally, look at this picture of this trout I caught, or check out my catfish, or check it out, I caught a bass last week. Meaning they were very recreational fishermen at best. And they'd say, hey, let's dress this kayak up and make a fishing kayak. Let's put some rod holders on it. So what was going on is you would have a boat that was really designed for a recreational kayak with a couple rod holders, and they were called fishing kayaks. That was until 2011 when Jackson Kayak made the first Coosa. That was a brainchild of Drew Gregory. Drew was an avid river fisherman for bass and tried all the different types of kayaks and came to the same conclusion that these boats were not designed for going over shallow shoals. They weren't stable enough for standing. They didn't have high seats, stuff like that. We solved a lot of those problems with the Coosa. And at the time, the Coosa was the most stable fishing kayak of all time. Now, if you're familiar with the Coosa, you'll know that it's nowhere near the most stable fishing kayak of all time. And in 2011, when I first used it, I was like, wow, this is the most stable fishing kayak that there is. And I'm 160 pounds, I'm a whitewater kayaker. I'm very stable and very balanced in a kayak, and this kayak is not as stable as I want it to be. We need to make them more stable. We need to make them wider and more stable. So that is where we're going right now. We've got boats like the Big Rig, Native has big boats, Bonafide has big boats. There's a lot of brands out there. Hobie has big boats, but they're now making boats that are a lot more stable. So anyway, the fishing kayak, if you've tried a boat out of Walmart or Dick's or Bass Pro or places like that, and you think you've tried kayak fishing and it's not for you, you haven't tried kayak fishing. It's not even the same game. It's like saying if you've fished out of a John boat, you've fished out of a Ranger. Totally different game. So, fishing kayaks, we're talking about paddle versions of kayaks right now. Number one, make sure you get the right boat stability-wise. Stability is the width of the boat, and the longer it carries its width, the more stable it is. For our brand, the Big Rig is the most stable of the paddle fishing boats, and we now have a Big Rig HDFD. In other words, it's paddle or pedal. We'll get into that in a second. So for paddle fishing, when do you use paddle craft? A lot of people are like, man, the future is pedal boats, pedal and electric. That is true. A lot of the sales are going in that direction. However, that's because a lot of people already have paddle boats, and paddle boats are used for these things. Paddle meaning you're using a paddle, there is no pedals, there is no motor. Number one, with a paddle-driven boat, you can get a lighter boat. You don't have the motor and the pedal system, so it's a more simple kayak. those boats you're using for getting for doing floats, shallow streams, any place where you need to drag a boat into a small pond, a small farm pond, super heavily wooded, weedy spots, or super shallow water. Like if I'm fishing the flats in Louisiana for redfish, and I want to go places that you're literally putting the paddle in the mud and pulling the kayak along, a paddle boat will get you in places and you'll be catching fish you cannot catch if you have pedal, electric, or any other type of boat. Also, if I'm fishing my local creeks like the Calf Killer, the Collins, any of the tributaries of my local lakes, and there's a bunch of them, the Rocky Rivers, stuff like that, those rivers and those creeks, pedal doesn't work. Paddle allows you to drag down the steep hills, get in, paddle along in super shallow water, into the deep holes, over shallows, drag over the shallow stuff, through the deep holes. When I say deep holes, I'm meaning like 2 or 3 feet deep. So average depth, 6 inches, yeah. That's when you use paddle. Also, of course, paddle boats are cheaper. You can get, we just made one called the Bite. It is $7.99, and it's an amazing fishing platform. High seat, standability, stuff like that. And yes, you can upgrade it, meaning you can add accessories and make it dress it up quite a bit if you want to. All right, now let's get into pedal boats. So when do you decide you want pedal boats? Well, the benefit of pedals, it's more hands-free fishing. So with your feet, you can provide power forwards or backwards. And that power, forwards or backwards, allows you to be casting. So let's say you're drifting in towards the shore. You can hit the gas, you can back pedal, pull yourself back away from the shore without taking your hand off the rod. So you get more casts in when you want to go to point A to point B, other than adjusting the rudder with your feet or your hands. You can be pedaling and casting at the same time. So that is the benefit of a pedal boat. Also, most people consider themselves stronger at pedaling than paddling. Now, I'm a kayaker, been a whitewater kayaker my whole life, so therefore my forward paddling, I can paddle a kayak faster than anybody can pedal a kayak. However, 99.9% of the population can pedal a kayak faster than they can paddle, so they get from point A to point B faster. So if you've ever ridden a bike or you run or you walk all day, you're a walker, but not more than a paddler, then you can probably pedal a kayak faster than you can paddle a kayak. So you can cover more distance and spend more time fishing. That is a benefit of pedaling. Now, pedal boats, they are not all pedal boats are not created equal either. So there's different types of pedal systems. Hobie has a really neat system with fins. They invented the pedal category. And it's been the most popular of the pedal drive kayaks for a long time, simply because number one, they had a great system, and number two, they had a big head start on the market and did a really good job with that. Recently, a lot of other brands have got into the game. Native, Wilderness, who am I forgetting? Oh yeah, Jackson Kayak. And Jackson Kayak also got into the pedal drive game, and as well as Feel Free. Now with Jackson's pedal drive, we did something that nobody else did, of course, which was we created what's called the Flex Drive. If you remember, one of the benefits of paddling a kayak is in shallow water, you're not in trouble. And well, we wanted to have shallow water be an access be accessible to our pedal drives as well. And the way we did that was a flexible drive shaft, where our propeller is attached to a flexible drive shaft on a dagger board. When you run over anything, the dagger board kicks up and knocks the propeller up and out of the way. But even more practical reasons, you drop it off your truck, trailer, off the roof, you drop it straight on the ground. The dagger board kicks up, you can drag it on the ground, no problem. All the other pedal drive systems, you actually have to lift the whole unit up and out of the water. If you're about to hit a log or a rock or whatever, you're gonna damage it, break it, it's gonna stop you. You can literally just pedal right over a log and the thing goes doo-doo, no problem. So you do have access, if you use a Jackson Kayak Flex Drive, you've got access to much shallower water when you're pedaling. Of course, you have one other benefit, and that is that you can take the pedals off and put a motor on. We're going to get into motors in a second. So with the pedal drive system, Keep in mind that it's not 100% hands-free still, because you still have to control the turning of the kayak, and that is done with your hands. So if you're cruising along and your boat's turning right, you still gotta like hit the rudder to turn it back straight or back to the left and then cast. So there is a period of time where your hands are off the rudder, which is part of the deal. So it's not 100% hands-free experience. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You cannot pedal and control the rudder with your feet at this point. One day perhaps we can find a way to do that. All right. So with a pedal drive, remember that some of the downsides of it are weight and shallow water. When I say weight, you're looking at another 20-25 pounds total, and it's not just the unit, it's more plastic around it and all the things, the rudder cables, the rudder controls. When you add all that stuff, 20 to 25 pounds more weight. So that's the downside of a pedal drive system. For Jackson Kayak, our pedal drives are Coosa FD. That's our smallest, most narrow, our lightest weight pedal drive at the moment. And then after that, we've got the Big Rig FD HD. That is our widest, most stable. And what's cool about that, remember I told you that the Big Rig was a paddle boat? The Big Rig HD FD, that means it's a combo boat. It's got a pod in the middle. It's removable. Pull the pod out and then replace it with a different pod. The two pods we're offering is one, just a straight hull that's on the bottom, and on the top is a hatch where you put stuff in, so it's a storage area. That's for paddle drive. Take that pod out and put a different pod in that has the flex drive, and now you've got a pedal boat. So if you buy the Big Rig HD as a paddle boat, later you decide you want to upgrade or you want to have it available for pedaling also, then you can get the other pod and it's a pedal boat. Now keep in mind the Big Rig is a really big boat, a big, wide, stable boat, so you don't really get the benefits of a super lightweight boat with that for paddling. It's much lighter than the pedal version, but it's such a big boat, it's not as light and nimble as some of our smaller paddle boats, so just be aware of that. Okay. Now, next level, electric motor. So electric motors. So now in fishing tournaments, I never imagined that this would happen, that kayak fishing tournaments would allow electric motors, but they do. If you're fishing the KBF, you're allowed to put up to 3 horsepower electric motor on your kayak, which means you can cruise long distances faster than I can paddle, or faster than I can even pedal combo. So basically, if you've got an electric motor and I don't, you can get to where you're going faster than I can. And I'm really fast. Okay, so electric motors. A variety of people have been making electric motors for a long time. You know, Johnson Outdoors owns Ocean Kayak, Old Town. They also own Minn Kota, and they made some electric motors early on for some ocean kayaks and some different boats, and they never really got off the ground. Probably because, you know, there's a great idea and you got an implementation, and perhaps it was also a little bit before its time. There's a brand called Torqeedo that has come in and done a really good job making great electric motors for kayaks, and that is definitely the brand of choice among tournament fishermen, tournament kayak fishermen. And what you'll see with those guys is a variety of different motor options. They're all electric. There's some good battery options. There is a challenge to Torqeedos, and that is you have to mount the dang things. So when you go to mount the Torqeedo, prepare to bring a drill, tools, you're going to be running cables. It is not an easy process. So you can do it in a good solid day. People that are really good at it, you know, can do it in a half a day, whatever. But it is a project, and if you're not really handy that way, you need to hire somebody else to do it, because you do not want to screw your boat up. But that's with a Torqeedo, and a Torqeedo has a neat throttle control, and depending on how you're mounting the Torqeedo, if you have the control with your feet and run the cables to foot braces, you can be running hands-free for the turning, but you still have to control the throttle. So if you're changing speeds, you've got to take your hands off. So now you've got hands-free control with the rudder using your feet. But as far as the speed goes, you still got to take your hand off, control the speed, or go in reverse. Torqeedo can push a boat close to 5 miles an hour, depending on the boat. It's quiet, it's a great system. Now there's this other company called Jackson Kayak, and we created, if you remember, the Flex Drive. That's our pedal drive system, but it's called Flex Drive for a reason. It's pedal or electric, and our electric, we call it the E-Drive, is just coming out. I've had an E-Drive to play with for the last year, different prototypes. I had the very original prototype, and then the more advanced and more recent ones. So the E-Drive is 2 thumb screws. You pull the pedals off and drop the motor on, 2 thumb screws, and there's a nice, real easy electric clip to clipping on your battery. And your battery can go right in the hatch, it can go on a battery box, wherever you want. And that battery will run you all day, and that E-Drive will push you about 5 miles an hour. About 4.3 in the big rig, over 4.5 in the Coos FD, and 5 miles an hour in the Angler 360. What's the Angler 360? That is the next level kayak. So the Angler 360, now let's talk about the E-Drive real quick. So the E-Drive also is not 100% hands-free, because you have to use the rudder, or there's a knob on the motor for the throttle, and it's infinitely adjustable at any speed, so you can cruise real slow along the bank, and turn it counterclockwise for reverse. That thing is an amazing tool. It's quiet, smooth, and fast. It's super lightweight, and the E-Drive is only $600, where you're going to spend like $1,200 on a Torpedo. So it's an affordable electric option. And then, of course, the same thing with like a Torpedo or any other electric motors. You hit a log, yeah, you're going to break something, and it's way back there. Also, can you get the weeds out? No. With the Jackson Kayak Flex Drive, remember, the drive shaft is flexible and the propeller is right in the middle. So if you hit a log, or let's say you get weeds, you just push a lever down and you can clean the weeds right out, right in front of you. Literally, the prop's right there. And if you hit a log or a rock or whatever, it just kicks out of the way and keeps on going. You don't even know you hit it. So it's a much safer, and it's a lower cost, and it's a faster, it's also a lighter option, and 0 assembly time. I guess if you count loosening the thumb screws and dropping it on, that's assembly, but there's no tools needed. Anybody can do it, super easy, just drop it right on. Okay, last level of kayaks, let's call it a really small bass boat, because that's what the way I think about it. Now, you can fish a lot of things other than bass with it, but the next one we've got is the, what is it called? You know what it is, the Blue Sky Angler 360. This boat is unbelievable. It is basically like a miniature bass boat. And the reason I say that is because it's laid out like a bass boat. You've got a walking platform all the way around, a fully elevated pedestal seat, 360, rotates 360. You can walk all the way around the seat. It's got a big flat platform to lay your rods in front. It feels a lot like fishing off of a bass boat, and it's laid out a lot like a bass boat, but yet it's only 13 feet long, 4 feet wide. You can wheel it around with your hands. It's like a little personal bass boat. It's the world's smallest, fully functional, amazing bass boat, the Angler 360. Now, when do you use an Angler 360? An Angler 360 is for people that are, let's just start with people that need an Angler 360, not just want one. I want an Angler 360. I don't need an Angler 360. If you are old, have bad knees, aren't very nimble, can't get up and down easy, have accessibility issues, aren't comfortable in a kayak of any size, even a big rig, because you're a really large person, or you, well, those are basically the people that would need it. If you, like me, and you want an Angler 360, it's because you want the additional stability. You want a completely worry-free experience where you've got so much stability. You can walk around, stand up, you know, get your lure out of a tree, and know that you're standing on a super wide, 4 foot wide, super stable platform. Also, you want to be able to get up and down easily. Now, I'm an athlete. I can get up and down in any of my kayaks from sitting to standing easily. But from when you're in an Angler 360, you're pretty much already standing up. The seat is so high that you just like lean forward and you're up. You don't have to stand up. You just go from the chair and up. So it's a much easier up and down experience. And then the seat is so high that if you never stand up, you already can see in the water. You're already at a very advantageous position with with your super high seating position. In case you're wondering, we've been out here since sunrise. I love sunrise. So the Angler 360 is a boat that you use for these reasons. Tournament fishing. If you want an advantage over anybody in the game, tournament fishing, use the Angler 360 with the E-Drive. Why E-Drive? Because remember how I said that all of them so far, you cannot call them hands-free experiences, and they're not hands-free because you can't both turn the boat and control the throttle without using your hands. You can either do one or the other, but not both. With the Angler 360, if you're sitting in the seat, the rudder controls are right here on the seat in two bars, both sides, kind of like an airboat, if you're familiar with those. They're right there, and while your line is in the water, you can bump those things with your elbows without taking your hands off the rod. So you can actually control it in the middle of a cast really easily without taking your hands off the rod, giving you the ability to control the boat while the motor's running you along. Here's another advantage of the Angler 360. Turn the seat sideways. Now you're facing the bank. You've got the E-Drive on, let's say 1 or 2, really slow. You're cruising along the bank. You can be pounding the bank. In any kayak, you have to face forward. So when you're casting the bank, you have to cast to the side. Or if you're pointed at the bank, now you got to rotate out and go. With the Angler 360, you can be cruising parallel to the bank with your seat sideways and be pounding the bank. You got the rudder right here with your elbow. Huge advantage. You feel like you missed a piece of structure, you want to hit it at a different angle or a piece of cover, turn, cast out the back. So for bank fishing, basically, throwing at the bank, Angler 360 has a huge advantage over any other kayak. So there's a big advantage. You can also stand on the seat. Drew Gregory just got 2nd place in the KBF National Championships. And one of the things he was doing was standing on his seat. Now, why was he doing that? He could really see in the water well, so giving you an advantage. You're already higher up. Stand on the seat, you can see in the water really well. Okay, other advantages, 5 miles an hour. Because it's a tandem hull, even though it's 4 feet wide and super stable, more stable than any kayak, it's made of 2 hulls that are really narrow. Those hulls are narrow and fast. Remember, narrow is fast, wide is slower, right? So 2 super narrow hulls are much less water resistance, because there's also no scuppers in them, than any of the kayaks that are wide enough to stand on. So the 4 foot wide kayak is faster than the narrowest, fastest, tippiest of the fishing kayaks. So the E-Drive pushes about 5 miles an hour, which is pretty awesome. And of course, the Angler 360 can be upgraded really easy. One of the cool things I think is cool, and I think is a good tool. Remember, the seat rotates in any direction. Well, what about your electronics? I mount my Raymarine electronics right there at my hip on the seat with a ram mount. So anywhere I look, no matter how I turn my seat, I know exactly where to look for my electronics, and they're right at arm's length, and they're right in the same position with my vision at all times, and they're out of the way. So that is a pretty neat function. And the list goes on. I can list another about 100 reasons why the Angler 360 is amazing. But I think you get the idea. It's a personal bass boat is the way to think of it. Downsides of the Angler 360, you're not going to drag it down to a creek. It's heavier, it's bigger, it's more cumbersome moving on the ground as far as like when you're in play through the woods and stuff like that. However, we did solve that issue with a neat landing gear. 2 wheels that go down, and they're kind of in the middle of the boat. So it basically acts like a little trailer. You put those down, and now you can wheel it around. So if you're wheeling it around on solid ground, grass or blacktop, cement, whatever, it wheels really easy. My 10-year-old Casey, he was 9 at the time, can wheel it down to the boat ramp, no problem. It's actually easier to move than a lightweight kayak in that way, as long as the wheels are down. Once you get in the water and push off, you got to get down, pull the wheels out, put them in water mode, and then before you get to shore, you put the wheels back down, go up to the ramp, lift it back out. So it's a perfect boat if you're using boat ramps or really nice grassy slope ground. Getting it to the water or getting it on a rooftop takes 2 people, and they need to be pretty strong. It's not easy. Putting it in the back of a pickup truck, no problem. It fits in the back of a small mid-size pickup truck, obviously a large one. So you just put you wheel it up to the tailgate, walk around the back, and slide it right in. So it's a personal bass boat, and it needs to be used that way. So you're using it on larger bodies of water, you're using it with an e-drive, you're using it with a truck or a trailer. We make a trailer for it also. You're not car topping it, not if you don't want to be cursing it. All right, and then, okay, there's other levels. There's John boats, there's little skiffs, there's obviously lots of boats. We're not going to cover, we're talking about bass fishing. We're going to go all the way to the end zone. When do you use a boat like this? This is my Ranger Z520L. It even has my name on it, so you know it's mine. Whoa, yeah. So when do I use this boat? This is my tournament fishing machine. So if I'm going to fish large lakes and tournaments, given a choice, I want to have the best boat I can, and this is the best boat out there. It runs really well on rough water. So some boats don't handle the rough water like the Ranger does, and on the big lakes, when it gets windy, it gets rough. So you could be on the other end of the lake, have a 60-mile drive back, and that sucks if your boat doesn't go well in rough water. So the Ranger is fast, goes 70 miles an hour with that Evinrude G2. Why do I run an Evinrude G2? New technology, that's why. At the time, basically, you had Mercury, Yamaha, Evinrude were the options. Evinrude had the newest motor in the G2. First year, it had some glitches, it had some bugs to be worked out. I got it in the second year, and this is my third one. It is unbelievable. So it's quiet when you start it up. So my biggest problem, I don't hear very well. A lot of times, if somebody is on a boat with me, they'll say, "Hey, EJ, your motor's still running," and I can't even hear it. It's so quiet. The reality is that motor isn't a 250 horsepower motor. It says 250 on it. It's 300 horsepower. But that would be illegal, wouldn't it? It would be illegal. So you know what they do? They use the firmware to power it back to 250. Now, what does that mean? What should that mean to you? It means making sure that it is the most powerful 250 horsepower motor on the market isn't hard. You just make sure your firmware is properly tuned up, properly set up in such a way that it delivers maximum allowable torque and horsepower at all given times. If you just had, if the cylinder size and the size of the engine was only capable of 250, it would have to run perfectly to deliver you 250. But since it's made as a 300, it only has to, operate, doesn't have to operate perfectly. Just has to have a firmware that delivers, make sure you're delivering 250 at all times. So the way I like to rig this boat up, I'm not going to go super in depth, but it comes pretty much ready to go. As you can tell, this is a gooseneck mount. I've got a sticky mount on my windshield with a gooseneck. I have another sticky mount on my trolling motor, so I can capture any footage towards me. What does that have to do with fishing? Not a lot, other than if you want to capture footage and you want to know how I do it, I'm telling you how I do it. And then I've got a YOLO Tech mount, the power sticks. That's what they go in the navigation light receptacle in the back. Now look how I did my electronics. I put my bow electronics on this ram mount instead of here. Now why would I do that? Because check it out. If I'm getting reflection of the sun, I just change the angle. Or if I want to change the angle the way I'm sitting, all I got to do is move and change the angle of the electronics in the bow anytime I want. Also, this acts as a shock absorber. You hit really heavy waves and you want to protect it. I just push it down in such a way that when it bounces, if you give a big wave, it gives. It's not a solid kaboom. Same with my side-mounted electronics. This is my I have a 9-inch on the side, and then 12-inch mounted in the middle. That's where I keep my goggles. Oh yeah. I'm trying to think of anything that I've done unique. Otherwise, I'm running it as is. So when do I use the Ranger? When I want to cover a lot of ground, like I'm in Lake Cherokee right now, and I want to run 30 miles that way, 30 miles that way. and go 70 miles an hour. I love kayak fishing. I'm not going to go 70 miles one way or 30 miles one way in a kayak. I might go 5 or 10 on a big day, 10, even a pretty big day, 5 one way. Now that's part of the beauty of kayak fishing, is you pick apart a smaller area. But the beauty of fishing out of a bass boat is the world is your domain. You can just cover some massive ground as far as you want to go. And for me, there are times where that is unbelievable. The feeling and freedom of cruising 70 miles an hour down the lake, knowing that anywhere in the lake you want to go is available to you at any moment. I mean, there's people out there, let's just put it this way. There's marinas right there. That is a marine dealer. You can't see because the sun's in your eyes, but that's a marine dealer right there. And most of those boats aren't fishing boats. There's pontoon boats, there's pleasure boats, there's wake boats, there's all kinds of different boats over there. So clearly, just pure boating, just running around on a lake for fun and hanging out on a lake with your family just for fun is a popular activity. And guess what? I enjoy that as well. I enjoy having Casey and Christine and Emily, Nick and Dane, the grandkids, and swimming off the boat, hanging out on a beautiful summer day on the lake. So yet another benefit of a powerboat like that is you can cruise around the lake, drive to a restaurant, you know, dock your boat, eat. So there's some upsides to it as well that you don't have in a kayak. Now, to put it 100% clear, if I had to choose between my one fishing, I get one boat to fish out of, and it's either my bass boat or I can pick one of my kayaks. I'm gonna pick a kayak. And which kayak would it be? I would pick the Coosa HD. Now, why would I pick the Coosa HD? Because it's the most versatile. I can use it, I can run whitewater in it, easy whitewater, you know, to get down to the rapids. I can run all the creeks in my area. Although it's not as fast and I can't cover as much ground as I would with an E-drive, like an Angler 360 with an E-drive, I can still use those waters. So I can fish any water with it in the world, and I'd probably catch the most fish and the biggest fish if I only had a Coosa HD. But whew, luckily for me, I don't have to choose just one kayak, so I can have a Coosa HD. And my next one may be a Bite, it's even lighter and simpler. And then I can have a Angler 360, and I can have a Ranger Z520L. So those are my 3 go-to boats at the moment. I also have a big rig FD HD. So technically I have 4 boats, but pretty awesome. So hopefully that helped you understand some of the benefits and drawbacks of each boat. I tried to be, you know, as unbiased as I can, meaning try to, you know, obviously I'm telling mostly about the Jackson boats. Every brand makes a boat. Nobody makes an Angler 360 but Jackson Kayak. At least not yet. Yeah, absolutely, there are advantages to each one. And anyway, hopefully you can use this to help you select your boat. And if you've never owned a kayak, please remember, you can't go to any of the places and get a cheap kayak and think that you're testing it out and decide whether it's for you. It's going to turn you off on it because it's going to be narrow, not stable, not really rigged for fishing. You're going to feel handicapped when you're fishing. You're not going to feel set free. So if you get a boat like the Angler 360, a big rig FD, even the new Bite, you're going to feel like you are set free and able to catch fish like never before. You're going to be comfortable and happy. If you get not a good kayak, you're going to be not comfortable, not happy, and not catching as many fish, and you're not going to want to do it. So we'll see you next week, same time, 11 a.m. Friday morning. Eric Jackson's in the know.